My name is Ranta. I am 28 years old, and this tale begins with a smirk, my mother's, to be precise. It was the very instant she reclined in her seat, arms crossed, and leaned toward my aunt, her voice rising just enough for everyone in the room to catch her words. "Told you, he wanted nothing to do with him." Her smug little chuckle resonated in my ears more than anything else that day. The lawyer had yet to complete the reading of the will, yet she had already caught the words she longed to hear. My name was not brought up. Not a single time. Not in a fleeting moment. Not a solitary penny. In her mind, that was the undeniable proof that she had triumphed at last. I remained silent. I remained seated, my hands neatly folded, my gaze serene, and a gentle smile graced my lips. For what she remained unaware of, what none among them grasped, was that the document they were poring over, that was not his testament. Not quite. Allow me to provide some context. My grandfather, Cataliot, was the nearest semblance of a true parent I ever experienced. He nurtured me more than my own mother ever did. At the age of 7, it was he who escorted me to school on the day my mother overlooked her duty. At the age of 13, it was he who imparted the knowledge of fixing a car engine to me, not out of necessity, but driven by a desire for me to possess skills that no one could ever strip away. Upon reaching the age of 18, he presented me with a handwritten journal brimming with his life lessons, urging me to explore the world, embrace my mistakes, and return with tales to share. Upon my return, 5 years after my journeys abroad, armed with a degree in architecture and a newfound tranquility, he stood there, patiently awaiting my arrival. Advanced in years and pace, yet still possessing a keen edge. Still Cataliot, yet that was not the version of him that my mother beheld. To her, he was an impenetrable fortress. Concerning wealth, regarding status, concerning real estate, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. At family dinners, she would often jest about her anticipation for the old man to finally relinquish the house keys. I did not find amusement. He did not either. The bond between her and me had perpetually been fraught with tension. She was the sort of individual who simply could not tolerate the absence of the spotlight shining directly upon her. All that mattered was the facade, a discussion on the attire chosen for church services, who received invitations to which events. Once, when I was just 10 years old, she raised her voice at me for shedding tears in public, claiming it reflected poorly on her as a mother. Cataliot remained silent that day, yet later, as she departed for one of her ceaseless errands, he presented me with a chocolate milkshake and remarked, "Some people only know how to take. That does not imply you must cease your generosity. It simply signifies that you contribute with greater intelligence." I find myself pondering that quote more often than I perhaps ought to. When Cataliot succumbed to illness, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Without hesitation, I returned home, requested time off from my job, and settled into his guest room to provide the care he needed. He found himself frequently entering and exiting the hospital due to heart complications. Yet, his intellect remained keen. We lingered for hours in conversation under the night sky. On certain days, he found himself too weary to utter a word. I would find myself seated beside him, reading the newspaper aloud, fully aware of his aversion to the quiet that enveloped us. And through it all, my mother hovered like a predator. She would arrive with takeout in hand and a practiced smile, suggesting her assistance in sorting out his finances or ensuring that his estate was properly arranged. It was not long before the true nature of her intentions became clear. He stated, clear as daylight, a few weeks prior to his final hospital visit, "I'm altering the will. Once more, I am placing everything under your name." I informed him that it was not necessary for him to do so. I had no desire for the money. He merely inclined his head. "I am aware. That is precisely why it is you." He then placed a small brass key gently into my palm. "A secure storage solution for your valuables. The bank is located in the heart of downtown. Refrain from opening it until the time has passed. You will come to understand." At that time, my understanding was limited compared to what it has become today. It was 2 days later, following a troubling episode with his heart, that he would find himself admitted to the hospital, never to return, or that my mother would arrive accompanied by a lawyer and 2 witnesses, compelling him to sign a new will, just to be safe. Access to the room was denied to me. She informed the nurses that I was the source of her stress. I was completely unaware of her actions until after he had gone. Upon her invitation, no, I was summoned. Tittle reading, as if it were a grand celebration of triumph. The instant my eyes fell upon her ensemble, I should have sensed it. Naturally, black, yet adorned with jewelry so striking it could be spotted from the cosmos. She believed this day was destined to belong to her. Indeed, it was in its own manner. For a brief moment, when that lawyer, a man unfamiliar to me, clearly an agent of her design, recited that entire fabricated document, it conjured a portrayal of my grandfather that was nothing but a mirage, a person filled with resentment. Chilly, discriminating, he bequeathed all that he had to her. The dwelling, the equities, even the vintage timepiece he meticulously polished each Sunday. The one he promised would belong to me. There is no reference to my presence, not a single post-it note in sight. And at that moment, her laughter rang out. In that moment, she reclined in the rigid leather chair, her tone laced with a self-satisfied smugness as she declared, "Told you." He sought to distance himself from you entirely. I remained utterly still, my eyes unwavering. I did not seek an explanation. I simply expressed my gratitude for the invitation, rose from my seat, and made my exit. There is no conflict, no theatrics. As soon as I settled into my car, I made my way directly to the bank. The manager identified me without hesitation. Cataliot had brought me to that place with him many years prior. He mentioned that you might pay us a visit one day. The man spoke, extending a form for my signature. Then, he revealed the box. Within the confines of the envelope lay a substantial package, marked in Cataliot's distinctive script, addressed to Henrietta. Exclusively Henrietta. It held within its confines two elements: a genuine will, duly signed and notarized, dated subsequent to the one they imposed upon him, accompanied by a flash drive. A video resides upon it. My grandfather, propped up in his hospital bed, frail yet intent, he gazed directly into the lens and declared, "If you're witnessing this, it signifies that your mother executed precisely what I anticipated. However, there is no need for concern. All that you require is at your fingertips. Allow the legal experts to take care of it, and do not let it weigh on your conscience. She has chosen her path. You created yours." That night, I found myself captivated by the video, watching it 4 times in a row. The following morning, I reached out to a legitimate attorney. It seems that one Cataliot had already taken the initiative to manage this chaos. He was known as Cow Terrence. He was a serene and composed individual, often uttering phrases such as, "We've faced greater challenges, and there's no need for concern. She is untouchable." He instructed me to remain silent for the time being, to allow her the illusion of victory. Thus, I proceeded to do so. For a fortnight, I fell into silence. She did not receive a response to her calls. I chose not to respond to the inquiries from my inquisitive cousins regarding the will. I maintained a low profile. In the interim, Cow Terrence meticulously arranged all that was necessary: the genuine intention, the audiovisual declaration, the proposal to challenge and nullify the fraudulent will. Above all, the intention to bring it into the public eye. And that is precisely the direction this narrative is taking the instant it all erupts. This evening, a festive dinner awaits at my mother's abode. She has extended an invitation to the entire family. A small assembly to raise a glass, embrace new beginnings, and pay tribute to Cataliot's enduring legacy. In her situation, it merely translates to flaunting her inheritance and parading it before everyone. Unbeknownst to her, I am on my way. She is certainly unaware of what I have in store. Rest assured, I will arrive with something in tow. By the time dessert graces the table, each and every guest will be acutely aware of her actions. The atmosphere was thick that evening. The oppressive summer humidity envelopes you, clinging to your skin and transforming each breath into a laborious task. As I drove into the cul-de-sac, I arrived a few minutes prior to the official start of the celebration dinner, choosing to park half a block away. The driveway was already filled to capacity. A minimum of 10 cars were tightly packed along the curb, with more gradually making their way in. She extended her invitation to all: relatives I hadn't encountered since my high school days, acquaintances of the family, lacking any genuine bond with Grandpa, yet always eager to accept the allure of complimentary wine and an array of catered appetizers. Ordinary. It was not sorrow. It was a grand performance. I lingered in the car for a few moments, observing the crowd as they flowed through the welcoming front door, clutching bottles of red wine or tins of pre-packaged cookies, as if it were a festive Thanksgiving gathering. I could already hear her laughter echoing in the air. Acute, exhibitory, practiced, the very same expression she wore at networking gatherings whenever the topic of money arose. It sliced through the front window, piercing something deep within my chest. Yet, I refused to allow it to linger. I extended my hand toward the passenger seat and retrieved the manila envelope. Within, the authentic will, duly notarized and stamped. A written account of the video that Grandpa captured, the chronology of its signing. Copies of the medical records unequivocally demonstrated that he was of sound mind at the time he made it. I pondered the option of allowing the lawyers to manage everything discreetly. Yet, that choice was taken from me the instant she revealed this dinner to the world. She yearned to showcase his memory as if it were a prized possession. Very well, allow her to proceed. Yet, I would ensure that all were aware of the true owner of that trophy. I tucked the flash drive into the pocket of my jacket, hidden away from prying eyes. I chose to forego the tie. I aimed for a laid-back appearance. Not trivial, calm and composed. Free from bitterness. Simply serene. I once came across the notion that nothing disturbs a deceiver more than the sight of their victim approaching with tranquility etched upon their features. In that moment, tranquility enveloped me. Chill, tranquil serenity. The sort that arrives when the conclusion is already familiar to you. I entered through the front door, bypassing the need for a knock. Her home was adorned with floral centerpieces and those peculiar artificial candles that flicker with a battery-powered grace. The walls adorned with aged photographs of her grandfather, carefully retrieved from storage for the evening, as she endeavored to present herself as the devoted daughter. A large print of him at the lake cabin loomed above the fireplace, elegantly framed in gold. The photo was captured by me. She didn't even bother to inquire. "Oh, look who finally decided to grace us with their presence," my Aunt Helen Ryland remarked, gliding past with a flute of champagne in hand. "He exists." I offered her a courteous nod and surveyed the surroundings. There she stood, my mother, clad in a black dress that clung too snugly for the occasion. I found myself sharing laughter with my cousin Daida and an unfamiliar man in a blue blazer, all while hosting a dinner in honor of my father. She was still unaware of my presence. A plate was presented to me, accompanied by the inquiry of whether I had sampled the shrimp cocktail. I dismissed it with a flick of my hand and ventured deeper into the living room. At that moment, she pivoted. "Oh," she remarked with a certain flatness, as if I were merely a stray cat that had meandered in from the street. "You have arrived." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, maintaining a cheerful tone. "I wasn't certain you'd choose to be here," she remarked, taking a sip of her wine. "When one takes into account, what are we contemplating?" I inclined my head. Her smile was restrained. "Indeed, it must be quite challenging, being aware of his presence, you know." I lingered in anticipation. "Allow her to excavate." She declared that you were excluded from the will, her voice rising, as if she craved the attention of everyone within earshot. He articulated his desires with clarity. A handful of individuals in close proximity cast furtive glances, feigning disinterest in the unfolding conversation. I merely shrugged. Indeed, the intricacies of wills can become quite convoluted, particularly when multiple documents are involved. The smile fractured. For a brief moment, a glimmer of discomfort crossed her gaze before she regained her composure. "Excuse me," she inquired, her voice laced with a hint of mischief. I delved into my jacket pocket, retrieved the envelope, and presented it to her with a lack of fanfare. "I thought you might be interested in having a glance." Her brow furrowed in confusion as she carefully opened it. As she perused the opening page, I noticed her lips draw together in a firm line. Her gaze darted from the title to the signature. Her hand tightened around the paper, a subtle yet firm grasp. "This is a joke," she murmured, yet the uncertainty lingered in her voice. I chose not to respond. Her gaze fell upon the second page, where the notarization lay, accompanied by the date and the signatures of witnesses. Next, she examined the medical note, pinned by Dr. The Mast, affirming Grandpa's mental clarity, followed by the transcript of the video. As she arrived at the moment when he explicitly identified me as the only beneficiary, her hands trembled with anticipation. "You forged this," she hissed under her breath, stepping closer to me. "How dare you?" I leaned in with a sense of tranquility. "It's not worth the effort. Cal Terrence has already submitted everything this morning. This is merely a gesture of politeness." "You won't escape this," she snapped, her voice climbing in intensity. "Indeed, I remarked, extracting the flash drive from my pocket. I believe I have already accomplished that. I gestured toward the television mounted on the wall, the very one they had utilized earlier to showcase an old slideshow accompanied by the melodies of Coldplay. Would it be alright if I took a moment with the screen? It was Daida who took the initiative, the cousin known for her affinity for technology. He gestured towards a USB port nearby, already reaching for the flash drive I held out. I allowed him to continue. He connected it, navigated through the directory, and discovered the document marked to be played only if they deceive. As the screen flickered to life and the video began to load, I shifted my gaze to the room around me. Relatives savoring their wine, cousins exchanging hushed words, and family friends, only vaguely familiar with my story, poised to witness the unfolding of a profound truth. Before we indulge in our meal, I remarked, it seems only just that everyone should know what Grandpa truly wished to convey. Suddenly, the screen illuminated, revealing him at last. Grandfather Cataliot, weary, yet poised, propped up in that hospital bed, gazing directly into the camera with those piercing, unmistakable eyes. If you're witnessing this, he began, then my daughter has indeed done precisely what I dreaded she would. Rest assured, I have drafted a new will. The genuine testament. It is indeed legal, duly witnessed, and securely locked away in a safe box. This serves merely to clarify and prevent any potential confusion. Silence enveloped the room. I observed her expression disintegrate before my eyes, shifting from smugness to confusion and finally to horror. She cast her gaze about the room, noting how every face shifted in her direction, jaws gradually dropping, wine glasses descending in a state of astonished silence. What's the most delightful aspect? He hadn't even reached the moment where he explained why he entrusted it all to me. Dottie. Grandpa's voice resonated through the room, echoing like a sermon from the afterlife. Calm and intentional, possessing a unique raspy quality that consistently captured focus. Even draped in a hospital gown, he exuded an undeniable presence. At this moment, he captivated the entire room with his charm. If you're curious about why I entrusted everything to Ranta, he said, folding his hands in his lap. It is straightforward. He arrived. In my moment of need, he stood by my side. In those moments when each breath felt like a struggle, he filled the air with the sound of his voice, reading the newspaper aloud, fully aware of my aversion to silence. He never inquired about what he would receive. He sought not a single penny. He simply appeared. My mother shifted her weight with a hint of discomfort. A handful of gazes had begun to shift in her direction, gradually, as if drawn by an unseen force, suggesting that the effort to conceal their interest had all but vanished. I understand this may not be well received, Grandpa continued. In that moment, his expression hardened, taking on a distinctly sharper edge. Particularly in your presence, Helen did. There it stood. She is known by a name, obvious and unmistakable. My mother recoiled. Yet, you have dedicated your entire existence to enacting love, all the while labeling it as loyalty. You appear in moments of glory, not in times of hardship. When you introduced that lawyer and attempted to persuade me to sign the documents you had prepared, I acquiesced. I have affixed my signature to them, for I possess knowledge that eluded you. I was aware that they were not the genuine articles. The crowd was now filled with gasps. One of my uncles quietly muttered, "Oh my God," under his breath. I allowed you to believe you emerged victorious. I was curious to discover the extent of your limits. Having done so, I must clarify that I legally altered my will following that incident. Ranta comes into possession of it all. The residence, the property, the finances, the investments, the collectibles, all of it. A plate clattered to the floor in the dining room behind me. I'm not doing this to punish you, Grandpa said. I undertake this endeavor with the hope that my legacy will be entrusted to someone who has not viewed me merely as a source of financial support, akin to an ATM with a pacemaker. I dedicated my life to nurturing this family, and in the end, it was Ranta who recognized my humanity. It is perfectly acceptable to feel anger. One may unleash a cry, but you won't change it. The video concluded rather suddenly at that point. No embellishment. There is no farewell. Only a screen dimmed to black and a space, so silent it felt as if the air had been stolen away. The ensuing silence was not merely uncomfortable, it was monumental. A silence that resonates softly in the background, prompting you to question the very rhythm of your own heartbeat. All eyes were upon me now, or perhaps upon her. My mother. Her complexion had turned ashen. The wine glass she clutched quivered in her grasp, as if it bore the weight of 1,000 burdens. What could this possibly be? She murmured softly, her words drifting into the void. This is not reality. It simply cannot be real. It has been confirmed. I spoke in a hushed tone, observed, certified by a notary, submitted earlier today. In that moment, she faced me completely, and after all these years, I finally beheld it. Not the woman who had admonished me about my posture in front of visitors. Not the woman who had once reprimanded me for shedding tears after my dog had died, claiming it made her appear vulnerable. This iteration of my mother was something altogether different. This was a woman who had staked her entire existence on a falsehood, now witnessing the earth split apart beneath her feet. "You're doing this to bring me shame," she spat. "No," I stated, that my voice is flat. "You accomplished that on your own. I am merely dispelling the haze." And Helen Ryland cleared her throat softly behind me. "Helen," she uttered with deliberate slowness. "Is this a fact? Did you have him sign something during his time in the hospital?" My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. I observed her struggle, yearning to uncover a rationale, a justification, a story to weave. Yet, there was none. There had never been. All the control she believed she possessed, all the image management, the insincere smiles, the meticulously chosen sympathy cards, departed. What unfolds next? My cousin Daida inquired, his tone wavering. "Are you referring to the legal aspect?" "In accordance with the law," I reiterated. "The genuine will enters the realm of probate. The authenticity of the forged entity is under scrutiny. The attorney who facilitated its passage, the one she engaged. You may wish to reach out to a malpractice attorney." My mother flinched as if I had struck her. "How dare you?" she exclaimed with venom. I advanced with purpose, merely a single step. How could I possibly? Despite all that has transpired, you continue to play the role of the victim? You exploited the frailty of a man nearing his end in a desperate attempt to seize all that he had created. You informed the nurses that I was not permitted to visit him. You intercepted correspondence. You deceived me. I have just revealed the unvarnished truth to all. Whispers abound now. Whispers gathering in the shadows. Relatives confiding in their partners. My uncle, burdened by his bad knees, rose slowly and made his way to Grandpa's photo, gazing at it as if he were encountering the man anew. Amidst the chaos, my mother remained still, ensnared in a moment beyond her control. I surveyed the surroundings of the room. I did not wear a smile. I did not feel victorious. I had reached my limit. I pivoted toward the door, extending my hand to grasp my coat. "To what destination do you find yourself heading?" A question was posed. Perhaps my aunt, perhaps not a soul. "Home," I declared. "I have much to untangle. Attorneys, records, attributes. Indeed, you are aware. Everything she believed belonged to her." As I descended the steps and stepped into the serene twilight, her voice echoed in my mind once more, in my wake, shattering amidst sorrow and fury, calling out my name as if it still held significance. Yet, I chose not to look back. I forged ahead into the darkness, leaving the past behind me. Her voice pursued me as I descended the steps, furious and quaking. Yet it ricocheted off me as rain does upon stone. I had devoted countless years in pursuit of something that was never hers to bestow. Endorsement, honor, a feeling of connection. That aspect of my being had perished alongside Grandpa. What lingered was an essence more subdued, more frigid, and infinitely more powerful. The subsequent days unfolded with a languid, purposeful rhythm. No fireworks were present. No ultimate shouting confrontations. Merely a matter of documentation, attorneys, and consequences arrive with the unwavering rhythm of the sea. On Monday morning, Cowterrence submitted the complete motion to nullify the forged will, including every page of documentation, the video testimony, and the nurse's written statement affirming that Helen, my mother, had forcefully coerced Grandpa into signing legal documents during a moment of vulnerability. Her lawyer, the one she had discreetly engaged with the hope of simplifying matters, attempted to retract his statements with such fervor that he nearly lost his footing. He asserted that he was completely unaware of Grandpa's struggles with mental clarity. He asserted that he was merely lending a hand as a courtesy. It was of no consequence. Less than 2 weeks later, the forged will was deemed invalid. It was strikingly evident, so outrageously orchestrated, so haphazardly assembled, that the judge required no extensive hearing at all. Simply a handful of testimonies, a pair of depositions, and voila. Departed. The rail will stand. The entirety of Grandpa's estate, every single piece, was now rightfully mine. It was a torrent of emotions. I imagined a surge of power coursing through me when it finally occurred, a sense of vindication enveloping my being. As I settled into the stillness of the bank's office, preparing to sign the documents that would transfer ownership of the cabin, the lake house, the trust accounts, and his cherished vintage car collection, a sense of triumph eluded me. A wave of fatigue washed over me. Weary of the struggle, exhausted by the countless years I had spent pondering why my mother failed to perceive me as Grandpa did. Weary of seeking tranquility among those who flourish in disorder. Cow Terrence, ever observant, held back until I completed the signing of the last document before smoothly presenting one final envelope. "What is this?" I inquired. "It comes from Cataliot," he said softly. "He entrusted it to us with clear instructions to be handed over to you following the official transfer of the estate." With deliberate care, I eased it open. Within lay a solitary sheet of paper inscribed in Grandpa's unmistakable handwriting. "Ian Ranta, refrain from squandering your moments in bitterness. Utilize what I have entrusted to you for creation, not for ruin. Your entire future lies before you, and I urge you to populate it with what truly holds significance. Cherish someone who is truly good, create something enduring, and never, ever allow anyone to convince you that your kindness is a flaw. It is the sole force that has ever empowered you beyond their reach." For what felt like an eternity, I found myself fixated on that note. As I stepped out of the office that day, I chose not to return to my apartment. I visited the lake house. Silence enveloped the surroundings. Unsettlingly so. The type of silence that once filled me with dread in my childhood now enveloped me in a warm embrace. Upon entering, I set my bags down and meandered through the space. All was precisely as he had departed it. The fishing rod remains leaning against the back door. The aged wool blanket lingered gracefully over the armchair. His slippers remained perfectly arranged by the hearth. That night, I kindled a fire and delved once more into his journal. Each page unfolds a tapestry of hard-won lessons, intimate tales, and hastily drawn diagrams of peculiar contraptions that remain forever unconstructed. And in the stillness of midnight, a decision took shape within me. I had no intention of selling anything, not the dwelling, not the cabin, not the timepiece, not even the weathered Chevrolet gathering dust in his garage, which had lain dormant since I turned 16. Each fragment of this heritage, his heritage, was destined to remain unblemished. Yet, I intended to put it into action. In the months that followed, I embarked on significant endeavors. Initially, I transformed the lake house into a nonprofit sanctuary for adolescents transitioning out of the foster care system. Grandpa had been raised within the confines of the system. Many individuals were unaware of that fact. He always held a tender regard for children who had faced hardships from the start, and I believed there was no more fitting tribute to him than to provide them with a sanctuary, a space to exhale, to find their footing, and to experience, perhaps for the very first time, the sense that they truly mattered. I utilized the trust fund to employ staff, counselors, maintenance personnel, and even enlisted a few of Grandpa's old friends to serve as mentors. The individuals who retained the echoes of his war tales and the sharpness of his wit. The attendees at his funeral were there not for the promise of inheritance, but out of a sincere sense of loss for someone they truly cared about. Then came the car, the weathered '72 Chevy, its radio silent and its hood adorned with rust. I brought it back to life. It wasn't out of necessity for a vehicle, but rather because he had begun to impart the skills of repair to me at the age of 13, a journey we never quite completed. The endeavor transformed into a weekend pursuit, offering me a sense of tranquility and a renewed sense of purpose. I would converse with him as I toiled, speaking aloud as if he occupied the passenger seat beside me. Indeed, I have successfully mastered the art of flushing the radiator. You were correct. It truly is a burden. On certain weekends, I would take a drive to the farmer's market, settling in to observe the water glimmering on the lake, while the breeze danced through the trees, reminiscent of my childhood days. News inevitably spread about my actions. Aunt Helen Ryland sent a card, handwritten, surprisingly, expressing her pride in how Grandpa would have felt and her regret for her prolonged silence. Several cousins have reached out, expressing their willingness to volunteer or contribute to the retreat. Even Daida has reached out with a message. "Greetings, my friend. I was unaware of the complete narrative. The video left me utterly astonished. Are you well? What about my mother? She disappeared without a trace. Not in a literal sense. She resided 2 cities away, continuing to host brunches for those friends who lingered only for mimosas and the latest gossip. Yet, in every significant sense, she had vanished. After the ruling, she ceased her attempts to connect. I chose not to pursue an appeal, made no attempt to express remorse. She vanished into the depths of her own shortcomings. It was only later that I discovered she had attempted to refinance her home, only to be met with rejection due to the ongoing fraud investigation. Cal Terrence informed me that the district attorney had initiated a discreet investigation into the forged will, warning that if she continued to press the matter, charges would inevitably follow. She refrained from pushing. Ultimately, revenge was not a necessity for me. Not quite. Observing her relinquish the singular possession she cherished above all, control, was more than sufficient. She might continue to indulge in her brunches and pearls, savoring silent afternoons as if none of this ever transpired. In the interim, I had gathered all that she attempted to pilfer and transformed it into something tangible. On a night, 6 months post the reading, I found myself on the cabin's front porch, cradling a mug of coffee, a hoodie snugly enveloping my shoulders. The gentle crackle of the fire pit resonated softly in the vicinity. It was the dawn of autumn, the atmosphere tinged with the crisp anticipation of the approaching winter. A sound echoed from the porch railing, drawing my gaze upward. Caleb was among the boys who had come to the retreat. 17, keenly intelligent, fortified by barriers thicker than a fortress, and a manner of speaking that perpetually echoed a challenge. "You mentioned that I could inquire about anything, correct?" he inquired. "Indeed." I gave a nod of agreement. He nudged a leaf with his foot and averted his gaze. "What prompted your grandfather to bequeath all of this to you?" For a brief moment, I paused to reflect. In that moment, a smile graced my lips. Since it was not something I requested, I proclaimed, "I simply arrived." He nodded slowly, as if savoring the thought lingering on his mind. Then, they settled beside me, their gaze fixed on the shimmering expanse of the water. Our conversation ceased from that moment onward. There was no necessity for it. In that stillness, as the stars stirred to life overhead and the trees swayed as if sharing hushed confidences, I came to understand a feeling I had never anticipated. Home was where I found myself. Not due to the property, not for the sake of wealth, not even for the sake of Grandpa. Yet, I transformed the most unsightly and shattered moment of my existence into something tangible, something of significance. Ultimately, that was everything he had ever desired.